Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. With 2024 having come to a close, there are still a few movies from last year that I'm wanting to watch and review before I share with you my top 10 best and worst lists. The one I'm here to talk about today is Moana 2. The synopsis is as follows. Moana journeys to the far seas after receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors. Instead of going through the 6 things that make a movie great, I'm just going to share my spoiler-free thoughts on the film. So Moana 2 supposedly takes place 3 years after the first film, but it didn't necessarily feel like that. For me, the story in this film is broken up into 3 acts, which consist of a choppy beginning, a miserable middle, and a pretty solid ending. And during that first act is when multiple things happen that feel like they should have taken place immediately after the first film, not 3 years later. But during a ceremony where Moana is being honored for being the new wayfinder for the tribe, she's visited by her ancestors who basically call her to pick up the mantle where they left off, which consists of going to find an island that used to be a meeting place for all the tribes around the ocean that for many years has had a curse on it, not allowing any of these tribes to meet. So she departs on this journey to try to break the curse and reunite the tribes once more. Moana haphazardly finds this crew of people to go with her that consists of 3 new characters that are the most annoying and shallow characters you've ever met. You have a grandpa who's negative about everything and he's the best out of all of them. You have this chick that basically womansplains everything to everyone and will not shut up. And you have a character who's basically the Lofo to Maui, in that he's obsessed with him, drools over him, and worships him. And I gotta tell you, those characters are why the middle of this film is so miserable. It's just an absolutely desolate wasteland of annoying characters, unintelligent script, and a boring story. Then when Maui finally returns to being part of the main story in the 3rd act, all of a sudden the story is much more interesting, what's going on is entertaining and action-packed, and you start to get to the heart of what the movie was trying to convey. The saddest part, though, is that despite the 3rd act being the best by far, this movie sets itself up for a sequel, but the problem is that the 3rd act and what they set up could have been placed at the halfway point of this film so that it could have been a much more interesting story. This movie is only an hour and 40 minutes long, but it feels like forever when you're sitting there because nothing really is happening. And sadly, it feels very much just like a shadow of the first film, with all the new elements being introduced not being very interesting. And the anti-hero and villain of the story are incredibly underutilized, in fact unknown until the end of the film. They basically pulled a Venom 3, which is extremely disappointing to me. One of the main reasons why I think that this happened is that you don't have either of the original directors returning to direct this film. In fact, you have 3 new directors, and it felt like you could really see that in the film. This movie doesn't even come close to the quality of the first film or its predecessors like Tangled and Frozen 1 or even Frozen 2. The animation is obviously incredible and continues to be great, and the vocalists do an excellent job singing these songs, even though they're pretty forgettable, just like the characters. But I can now see why nobody was talking about this film after it came out, which is sad because I was really looking forward to it. All in all, the only way that I could watch this movie and enjoy it at all is turning off my brain and saying this is another mindless kids movie, because that's how it felt. I even found myself comparing this movie to Thor: Love and Thunder because of all the random screaming animals that it had going on, thinking that that was funny. So much of this film just felt like a shallow reiteration of the first film, like they couldn't figure out how to make it interesting, so they just thought, we'll just copy what people saw 8 years ago as if they didn't see it. The only saving grace for this movie was the final act, and if the whole movie had been of that quality, it would have been just as good as the first. So with all of that in mind, I have to give Moana 2 a 5.5 out of 10. Look, this movie will serve fine as a mindless kids movie, but so much of the original charm and cleverness and storytelling of the first film are just not present here. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Moana 2, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.